If you're watching this video, then perhaps you're thinking of starting your own food business, and maybe you're just getting your ideas together and looking for some inspiration, or maybe you know exactly what it is you want to do and you're after some practical advice on things like insurance and food hygiene certification. Either way, I hope there'll be stuff in this video that you'll find useful and will take you one step closer to where you want to be. I've run a home food business for the past 5 years, and I worked in restaurants for 15 years before that, and while I loved working in restaurants, setting up on my own and starting my business is the best decision that I ever made. I run an underground restaurant out of the converted bottom floor of my home, cooking a tasting menu for just 8 guests a night. It's my full-time job, I deeply love it, it's got a pretty great reputation now, and it's fully booked 6 months in advance. It's quite an unusual thing to do, but I've got experience doing other aspects of food businesses too, like doing takeaway during the lockdown, making and packaging foods to sell, photographing and self-publishing my own cookbook, doing pop-ups around the world off the back of this, and then working with larger brands like Google, Waitrose, Vodafone, the Four Seasons. I'm not telling you this to show off, but to show that if you have a great idea, you absolutely can pursue it and make it work and have a really interesting and rewarding career. So I hope I can give you some guidance here if you're looking to set up a food business, particularly from your own home. I'm going to start by talking more about broader ideas around being self-employed, some of the pros and cons, and then later in the video I'm going to talk more about specific practicalities like insurance, food hygiene, and finances. Starting your own business can feel risky and scary, but whether you're ready to take the leap or you're just getting your first ideas together, the best time to start laying the groundwork and begin the journey is right now. The biggest pro for me is the freedom. You get to design your own lifestyle and pick your own hours. If you want to stop and go for a walk in the middle of the day, you can. Or if you're excited about a new idea and you want to work on it all night, you can do that too. And that doesn't suit everyone, but it really suits me. I find it really satisfying to know that all the work that I'm putting in is investing in my own business, my own skill set, and my own future. And then there's the creative freedom to pursue the ideas that you're most interested in. And it's very action focused. You don't have to wait for someone to offer you something or to give you permission. If you want to start a project, you can just begin and make that happen. And working for myself has given me some incredible life experiences. I've been invited to cook in Mexico City and rural Sichuan, China, and to teach in Cyprus and Athens. All these things had a really big effect on how I work and cook. But there are definitely some challenges involved in working for yourself. It can take a long time to feel successful and to build the reputation and momentum for your business that you want. And while the successes and achievements can feel incredibly satisfying and personal, so too can the failures and losses, projects that don't work out or times that you get let down. And it can be difficult to learn to let go of those and not take it to heart. It can be incredibly long hours, and this isn't something that I want to glorify or encourage, but I've had to work fairly extreme hours, even for the food industry, and often work weeks at a time without a day off. And this is something that I'm really working to change, and my big ambition for next year is to have a better work-life balance. Having said that, I know some people who nailed their work-life balance right from the start, so it might depend on your business and your personality. If you do choose to work from home, it can be worth being aware that this can sometimes start to feel like living at work. Work can start to permeate into the rest of your time and your space. It can be hard to know where to draw a line and the working day finishes, and it can start to take over your physical space as storage and projects start to fill up your home. Lastly, there's the vulnerability to external factors like changes in supply and demand, or changes in the world like we've seen over the past 2 years with the pandemic and the havoc that's wreaked for hospitality businesses and small businesses. But please don't let all of this put you off. Even with the difficulties of the past 2 years and the pandemic, the best decision I ever made was starting my own business and working for myself. If you don't come from a hospitality and food background, then you might want to think about getting some professional food experience if you're looking to start your own food business. Cooking professionally and scaling things up can be very different to cooking for friends and family, so getting some professional experience can help you to go in with your eyes open and to learn some skills that will help you to scale up your work. Having said that, I know people that have booked this trend and started really successful food businesses without that kind of experience, so it might just be what suits you. I think it is worth taking the time to really research your niche, see what the market's like, and understand how you might fit into that and how you might stand out. I was always rubbish at the business side of things, but a couple of years ago a friend helped me to do a business plan, and even though I was already up and running, I found it really useful to sometimes come back to that and refer to it when I'm planning or trying to make decisions. So you might want to think about doing something similar as you're starting out. So now we'll move on to the critical stuff: food hygiene, insurance, and finances. I won't be able to give you all of the information here, and the information I can give you is going to be fairly UK centric, although I believe there's a lot of crossover with how things are in the US. If in doubt, Google what the local regulations are where you are. I think the most important start point is food hygiene. If you're going to be cooking for people professionally, you need to have a really good understanding of food hygiene, and you need to be making sure that what you're doing is safe. You'll need to have your premises inspected by an environmental health officer, even if it is your home. They'll come and inspect how you're working and your procedures and give you a food hygiene rating. You'll need to notify the local council that you're starting to operate a food business, and they should arrange for a food hygiene inspection. Before you get started, you should have a basic professional food hygiene qualification, and in the UK that would be at least a level 2 in food hygiene. This is a relatively simple course that you can do online, but if you're new to working in hospitality, I'd suggest going and doing the day course because you'll get a lot more out of it. You'll also need to create a HACCP plan, a Hazard Awareness and Critical Control Points plan. Here you outline potential hazards and how you'll safeguard against them. For example, this is where you'll provide your evidence of cleaning plans and temperature checks. If you need advice and guidance in creating a HACCP plan, the good news is that there's tons of information and templates available online. And linked to this HACCP plan, you're going to have an allergen system that makes sure that any allergens used in your food are clearly signposted for people, and no one can get served something that they've told you they're allergic to. This all might sound pretty full on if you're new to it, but it's really important stuff. Next up is insurance, and there's two key types of insurance that you might have to think about: public liability insurance, and if you're working from home, your home insurance. Public liability insurance is vital, and lots of markets and street food events will require you to have it. If someone was injured or became ill, this covers your expenses and potential legal expenses. If you're working from home, you need to contact your insurance provider, or if you're renting, speak to your landlord. When I first started, I had to change my home insurance because it was affected by the number of guests that I was having in and out of the building. And then lastly, let's touch on finances, and I'm just going to pass on the general advice that worked for me. So if you're leaving a job to go freelance, you should make sure that you have some savings as a financial buffer. I've seen this amount described as anything from 3 months to a full year's worth of income set aside. The amount that you choose to set aside might depend on how secure you feel your new work is and what you can afford to save up. Obviously, the more you can afford to save, the more security and breathing room you have. You might also need to think about whether you'll need to invest in the beginnings of your business. Will you need new professional equipment, packaging, or travel expenses? The more you can predict and plan for these things, the better. Then when it comes to tax, I personally use an accountant to help me do my self-assessment. I feel much more confident knowing that they've checked everything, and for me it saves enough time and stress that I feel it's worth it. If you're working from home, you'll also be able to claim some of the expenses relating to using that space against your tax. And those are the sort of things that an accountant can be really useful with. And then also linked to your finances is how you're actually going to sell the thing that you're providing. I use the ticketing system TOC to sell my reservations, and I've found that great. There's also sites that you can use like Eventbrite and a variety of apps for things like delivery. So have a look around and see what might be the best way of you interacting with your customers. When you're first starting out, the amount of things you need to do to get set up can seem overwhelming, but if you can break it down into manageable tasks, it can seem much more manageable over time. You shouldn't leave secure income to do your own thing until you're fully set up and ready, but once you are and you can take that leap, it's awesome. I feel really lucky to have been able to create my setup where I'm fully booked 6 months in advance, and I'm getting to work on other interesting projects as well. I love the freedom and being able to follow what I'm passionate about. If you want to set up your own business, I wish you all the best with it. It's the best decision I ever made.